My name is Laurens Wapenaar. I am product manager at FinDock, and this webinar will be about our January 22 release. Good to know. This release is already in your sandbox environment, so it can be tested right away. Everything that we will be discussing and will be automatically pushed to your production environments on January the 29th in the evening. If you'd like to see the schedule for all our updates and follow this release in particular, you can do so by subscribing to status.findock.com. And the content for this webinar. As always, I'll give a brief update on the status of our pilot features. And we have some very interesting new updates for GoCardless. We've added a few new payment methods, and we've added the ability to do offline acceptance. What it is, I'll explain in more detail later. And always around this time of year, we have lots of bugs and enhancements to make our system work better and more beautiful. So to start with our pilots, the only pilot we currently have in progress is MOTO credit cards, which we are testing with a few customers. We hope to move this pilot and this feature to beta with our next release, so our March release. And we are still testing the features with the select group of customers. However, if you'd like to join the pilot and give us feedback about how this feature works for you, please contact us at support@findock.com, and we can see whether you fit our criteria for a pilot customer. So on to all the new stuff. Let's start with GoCardless. So as you know, we have an existing GoCardless integration that does Bucks direct debit, so UK direct debits, but GoCardless operates in the entirety of Europe, basically. We, of course, handle specific requirements around direct debits and things like that, but GoCardless does the actual collection. And you can do all this by having one contract with GoCardless in and then collect in several countries. In this release, we have added 2 new direct debit schemes, as we call them. On the one hand, SEPA direct debit, which enables you to collect direct debits in euro across the entire European Union and the euro region. And on the other end, which is new for us, is Autogiro, which is the direct debit scheme used in Sweden that uses the Swedish krona as currency, and similar to many countries in the Eurozone, is used by almost everyone in Sweden. This is our first Sweden-specific way to collect direct debits, where, of course, for SEPA, we also have many different other PSPs and a native offering as well. So how can you do direct debit payments with GoCardless? So we always split payment functionality in 3 steps. You can accept a payment. Basically, this means setting it up. A customer tells you they want to pay, and they authorize you to take direct debit payments. Then you process those payments based on the authorization, which means actually collecting the money. It also means handling mandates or DDIs in the UK, and then you reconcile them. You find out whether things were paid properly. For GoCardless, you can do this online, the acceptance, then you run a payment schedule to process them, and then GoCardless sends FinDock notifications about the status of the payment, whether it was successful, yes or no. In this release, we will also be adding the capability to accept things offline, by which we mean through face-to-face marketing, through phone, on paper, basically anywhere you can get a donor or a payer to authorize a direct debit, and then entering that into Salesforce. First, however, I want to show you the online part with the new payment methods we've added. So for that, we will be going to our demo. What you see here is a simple giving page, donation page I created, through which we can do one-time and recurring donations. Here we'll be doing a recurring donation for 15 euros. And by the currency, you can already see, let me quickly refresh this page, that this is going to be a SEPA direct debit payment. Let me quickly enter the minimum amount of details required. And then, oh, this is a one-time payment and I want to do a recurring. As you can see here, the two new payment methods, Autogiro and SEPA direct debit, for GoCardless at least, are added. We'll choose SEPA direct debit, and when we click donate, we are redirected to GoCardless. Now, GoCardless handles everything direct debit specific here. So all the legal requirements, they know exactly what data needs to be collected depending on the country that you choose within the Eurozone. In this case, we'll keep it simple. We are in Woerden. And of course, this is a test payment, so I can basically enter any details that I want. Now, next step, of course, is entering the bank account details. I will be using the default Rabobank IBAN, and then once this is good, they will give you a confirmation page. Basically, now we can set it up, and we are redirected to a thank you page. Now, what you won't be seeing is that GoCardless will check whether this mandate is actually something that's usable, and they will be sending FinDock updates on whether the payment is successful. Now, we can find in Salesforce, of course, all these details that we need to collect things in the future. Since this is a recurring, we expect a recurring donation to be created, and there it is. And this recurring donation for 10 euros, and it's monthly in this case, will have a payment profile. And the payment profile represents the bank account. Now, the IBAN is crossed out because this is data that GoCardless holds on their end, and they want to keep this private and secret. They do, however, send us the holder name, of course, and connected to this recurring donation and this payment profile, we will find the mandate, which is the authorization to collect money against this bank account. For SEPA, this is immediately active and can be used, even though GoCardless is still registering things and will later send us an update that the registration has been successful. However, if you have a mandate for Autogiro, you are not legally allowed to immediately collect. So the status of the mandate will not be active from the start. Let me quickly find one. So here we have the Autogiro version, and here the mandate will only be set to active once you're actually legally allowed to collect against this, which GoCardless will tell us. Also here, you will find the bank details that are used to update are used to collect against. Now this is the online flow. And of course, from here on, you can run payment schedules to collect against. But this, of course, is quite simple. So let's move on to the offline flow. Now, offline payment acceptance was something we were not able to do yet with GoCardless, but is now also possible for Bucks Direct Debit, the payment method which we already had. And by offline, we mean not the online flow, basically. So that's anywhere where a donor or a customer writes down their details, so their bank account details for you to collect. Sometimes for Box Direct Debit, there is a very specific format that needs to be signed. For SEPA, this can be anything. It can be any paper, basically, with a bank account on it. And then you enter that data into Salesforce manually or through an automated process. This data is then sent to GoCardless for registration. And again, GoCardless will handle the mandates or the DDIs and all rules around that. So you don't have to think about it. And then you can collect through a payment schedule once that's all said and done. Important to note there is that GoCardless only allows this when you have a GoCardless Pro subscription. So how does that work? Especially the part where the mandates are registered, so the authorization to collect payments against a certain bank account. Basically, there's 3 steps. You import the mandates into Salesforce and you set them to pending registration. Then you run a mandate schedule, which I'll be showing in a second, to send these mandates to GoCardless. Then GoCardless handles this with, depending on what direct debit scheme we're dealing with, handles the integration with the network, the Box network or the Autogiro network. For SEPA, this is not required. And then GoCardless will send us a notifications that the mandate has been activated, or if you are canceling a mandate, that the mandate has been cancelled. Now, all of this can be followed by looking at the status of the mandate record in Salesforce. So it starts out as pending registration or cancellation. Then once it is sent to GoCardless, it will be pending registration acceptance. And then once everything is done and dusted, the status will be success. So let's see what that looks like. Here in my environment, I have manually already imported some mandates. So we see a few mandates here that are in pending registration. They are inactive. And these are mandates that, for instance, of course, do have a payment profile related to them, with, in this case, a Swedish bank account 003 with the branch code 5491. Now, these mandates are currently inactive, which means they can't be used to collect payments against, and to make them active, we will be running a mandate schedule. So on to the mandate schedule. I have a mandate schedule here that's already scheduled for FinDock and GoCardless. Now, basically, when I start the generation for this, it will select the mandates that are ready for registration or cancellation. So where we've set, for instance, a certain status that says pending registration, pending cancellation. And then it will send these to GoCardless. Now, this is all, as you see, automated, and we're done. And if everything is correct, and I've set everything up correctly, we will find 4 mandates here that were pending registration, but are now pending registration acceptance. So they're with GoCardless now, and GoCardless will handle all the details with the direct debit scheme network, in this case, the Autogiro network in Sweden. In the end, they will send us a notification based on what happens with the network, that everything was okay. And then in the end, the mandate will look like this. The status will be success, and the mandate will be active. Now, if you want to cancel a mandate, for instance, because the donor calls you and says, well, I want to retract my authorization for you to collect direct debit, then you can simply change the status here to pending cancellation. Of course, can be manual, can be through an automated process, can be done with the flow, for instance, or a screen flow to guide your agents through this, or some external system. Save it, and then run the mandate schedule again. We also have a button here, so if you want to be quick, you can press this button and we do exactly the same. But if you, of course, want to do this in bulk, let's say you have hundreds or thousands maybe, then you don't want to go through every record and manually click them. In the end, for the successful mandates like this, we can collect direct debits through, for instance, a payment schedule. This one's already run, but it gives you some idea of how this data is used to get money into your bank accounts. So those are the new features for GoCardless. So we've added 2 new payment methods, SEPA direct debit, which can be used across the Eurozone, and Autogiro for Sweden. This is also, as you might have noticed, if you've worked with us for a long time, our first Nordic-specific payment method. In the next release, we hope, and of course this is under a safe harbor, we hope to be adding native Norway features, but about that more in our next webinar. On to our bugs and enhancements. We've added a lot, and I'm not going to discuss them all in detail. The details can be found in our release notes. There's one thing, however, that I would like to call out specifically. We've been on a continued journey to make our system more reliable and stable, and make it easier for you to run your processes without having to contact us, which means we've done a lot of very specific things where a payment schedule could get stuck or a mandate schedule get stuck. And by stuck, we mean that it was in a state where you as a user could not handle things yourself, but you would have to contact us and we would have to do something on our end to get you through your direct debit run. We've done this by, well, mostly simply preventing jobs to get stuck, and then instead of getting stuck or in a state that needed dislodgement by us, just failing the schedule or rejecting it, for instance, if certain data was missing, and also throw a clear error so that you can see what's wrong and then solve that by yourself without having to contact us, saving you time in crucial moments of direct debit collection or payment collection. There's a whole list of things we did here. For instance, process would get stuck if the chatter group was that we post the files to was archived, which happens automatically in Salesforce currently, or when certain data like an installment was deleted and we were trying to find and update it. More on this and more what these things mean specifically, you can find in our release notes. Of course, there's a quite a large list of other enhancements that we did. One I'd like to call out as well is that we've done significant work to improve the peak performance around Webhub, which is where giving pages and pay links live, especially around, of course, the holidays in December. We see lots of traffic, and we've done a lot of things to make sure we can handle that, which of course is also a continuing journey for us. If you'd like to read about these things in more detail, including the stuff I demoed and discussed around GoCardless, you can visit our release notes at docs.findock.com. And of course, specifically for all these features, there's also documentation explaining things in more detail. And of course, this webinar is recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. I will stick around for your questions. But if you have somewhere else to go, this is the end of the webinar. Thank you for joining in the new year, and see you in March.